reconstruction is complete. Mental integration of neural repairs is beginning. You are asleep and may experience misfiring of neurons for up to several hours as biological and electronic components synchronize. Use this room to retain mental stability during the process. We thank you for your service to your country and will do everything in our power to provide a speedy recovery.
Alive after all, but barely. Reconstruction, repairs, integration. From inside this dream, it seemed distant enough to be something I imagined. Those words bring it back into sharp focus. We were torn to pieces by an explosion that should never have happened, caused by an enemy that shouldn't have been there. The weeks prior to all this, I had dreams about coming home, both wonderful and horrifying, but it seems the dreams about combat are coming back, different from before. There is clarity in my goals and movements. I feel powerful and focused. I am alone. It's only inside this room that I worry about the others. Who else might have survived and what remains of them? Perhaps that's why it's so tempting to leave and enter the chaos outside. But is chaos all it is? What if there's a message in what I see when my mind isn't padded by these walls? What if these experiences are the very opposite of a message? What if they're a deliberately structured lie? The path that led me here was nothing like this. The future will be nothing like this. There won't be a second chance. The last months have been a series of increasingly slim first chances. We had to take them, but we knew the risks, and maybe I was just lucky to make it out alive. It's been tempting not to think about the past, but my memories are intact. I have no excuse for taking the easy way out. We never had a chance to succeed. Our objectives turned out to be meaningless when we reached our destination, and the eventual attack that put me here happened without warning and without a chance to react. This dream can't be an allegory to describe the reality we fell victim to. What is its purpose? To shield against the truth? Whether it is for good or bad, I'm not sure. Maybe this is a trick my mind is playing on me with the best intentions, but that sort of illusion will eventually crack, and I'm not sure that I'll like what's underneath. Having made my way through another mission in the clouds, I'm beginning to see a possible reason for why this is happening, and why it has to stop. It may be the reason the medical staff asked me to retain mental stability, so I wouldn't get caught up in what is effectively the fallout of a traumatic experience. One of the last things I remember before losing consciousness was how helpless we felt. This was not just me. Everyone who survived the explosion didn't just know that we would have to lie there and wait for help to arrive, but also that there was nothing we could have known, nothing we could have done. It wasn't our mistakes that brought us there. We felt helpless because there was nothing we could learn from it. This must be what my mind is so desperately trying to escape from. Since I first left this room and handed over control to my shaken mind, it has repeated these scenarios where I have just the power to meet any challenge I face, where the mission is always possible to complete. This is a world providing a sense of control, of power, everything we were deprived of in the chaos of those final days. I remember believing once that as long as we had the will to fight on, we couldn't truly be stopped. But I left those ideas on the wayside long ago. I refuse to be comforted by them now. Perhaps in seeing through this lie, I can begin to understand what happened to us after all. Contrast. Nothing reveals absurdity better. As soldiers, we learn to be pragmatic, to see what we must do and could do before what we should do. I thought that was who I was now, disillusioned but realistic. It may have been how I lived and fought, but it was not where I got my strength from. What kept me going was the same old idealism, the thought that victory was ahead of us, just out of sight. Now that I'm reliving that idealism where it started, as a fantasy, I can see how little it has in common with the world I'll eventually wake up to. There was no victory for us to reach. I refused to accept defeat, but I still have to accept that. I'm growing restless. I suspect the integration process must be nearly finished by now, and I want to get out of here as soon as possible. This world, though well-intended, feels hollow. I want to move on. I don't know if I'll be able to explain to the other survivors from the squad, if there are any, why I feel relieved to return to civilian life permanently. Not that I need an excuse, but I suspect some of the others might find it difficult to accept. However, watching my old dreams about what war would be like through the lens of recent experiences, I genuinely feel that I would rather aid my country in some other way. There must be many others who go through the same things as I have during neural integration. Perhaps once I have the time to collect my thoughts, I'll be able to help others coming to terms with the senseless situations people go through in life. I'm beginning to think something can be learned, even from tragedies beyond our own control. It may be time for me to accept what the correct term for this dream world is. A lie. Someone is lying to me to protect my mind from what will break it. It could be me. There are such things as psychological defense mechanisms, and this absurd castle in the air seems increasingly like one of those. Battles the way I dreamed about them as a child, before I'd seen the war. But even more disturbing is the possibility that the people reconstructing my body and brain have inserted this to stop me from losing my mind before I even regain consciousness. Who would bring in images from my childhood's imagination to keep me in the dark? What could possibly justify that? No matter how much progress I make here, I find no answers. All I find is myself, back in this room, asking more questions. They left a message about neural repairs and a thank you here, but nothing else. Why? Any news they could give me would be better than the final memories I have from before losing consciousness. When I found myself alive here, I hoped I would not be the only one. But this silence means I have to assume the worst. I haven't had dreams like this for years. I've thought back on them as a way to escape a harsh reality, a reality I've learned to face many times since. If my injuries and situation really are worse than anything I've faced up to now, and this world is meant to help me forget, I almost wish it worked better. Providing me with missions and obstacles here must be meant to serve as a distraction from the inferno of emptiness that waits outside. The death of my squad, a life where I've lost the only thing that I've lived for these past years, the ability to protect my people. Even the foreign, artificial body that's been forced on me, the only reason I'm going back at all. The goals I'm achieving here feel increasingly absurd. They seem like a mockery of everything that went wrong, like I'm not allowed to accept my own failure. Perhaps it would have been better if I had simply been left on the battlefield, so my regrets could have died with me. When I felt my eyes opening this time, I began to realize how hopeless my situation really is. For a moment, I thought I was truly waking up. I was terrified, then relieved to find that I was still inside my mind. I was ashamed of that relief. The prospect of moving on from the meaningless illusion I've already seen through seems like the sort of death I can actually fear. What does this sort of lie suggest about the world outside? Does it matter if it's a product of what is left of my own brain, or something they forced into the artificial part to pacify me? The implication is the same. I can't take what's out there. In a natural world, I would at least have been allowed to pass on after I failed to save myself, but they insisted on bringing me back, even more useless than before. On top of all that, this, a mean-spirited joke about what nothing is actually like. I don't care if it was me or them. There is nothing for me here, and nothing for me outside. I know I'll have to face reality sooner or later, but at least there will be a way out. What sort of message could there possibly be in all this? I've seen the veterans who have gone through these repairs. They live decent lives, as decent as life gets while the war is still raging, but they are not fit for combat. So why am I thrust back onto a battlefield every time I leave the room? On the other hand, it's all very different. The events that brought me here couldn't happen in this world. Everything is within reach here. It reminds me of what I imagined when I first heard of the concept of military cybernetics as a kid. But when I enlisted, those thoughts were far behind me. So why are they surfacing again now of all times? I think I can put my finger now on what lives in these visions that the war lacked: progress. Every step along the way brings me closer to something. It certainly feels like what I need right now: clear goals and the means to achieve them. When I eventually wake up, resting and recovering will be the last thing on my mind. I haven't dared to think it before now, but it's possible that this environment is preparing me for what is really ahead. The question is whether this is a metaphor or an actual window into the future. My appreciation for these ruins among the clouds was, from the beginning, a bit nostalgic. I used to dream of places like these as a kid, and now they were brought back when I needed them the most. It would have been easy to give up and declare myself a casualty, but I remember well now that I never was that sort of person. When I eventually wake up, recovery will be a difficult, painstaking process. I've seen it. Even with brain integration, it takes time to learn how to walk on non-organic legs. But I've also seen veterans persevere throughout this process, wondering where they got their strength from. I need to find my source. Returning from the clouds outside, I realize that the nostalgia I feel is not only for dreams. This is the world as I hoped it would be. It has always colored how I've lived, even when I forgot it. Every possibility is worth exploring, every effort worth extending, because in the end, one path will lead to my goal. In here, I know this. Out there, I hope this. Reality may not always live up to the ideal, and sometimes there is no solution. I've just lived to see that happen, but I don't regret for a second that I tried to find a way, even if it wasn't there. This place is where I got my strength from in the past, and it makes the future all the more clear. Rehabilitation may be much like the dreams I've been experiencing during the brain integration. There will be setbacks, occasionally it will feel unfair and difficult, but it will be possible. It's not difficult to see what purpose the allegory serves, although it escaped me at first glance. I guess that's why I was asked to rest and think in this room, to make sense of what I already on some level knew. Whether these dreams just happened to be inspiring or really were a result of my past self reminding me of what I used to believe in seems pointless to speculate about. Maybe I've just been staring at an ink blot, but I know what I've seen. I can feel the integration process nearing its conclusion. The room somehow feels warmer, and the wind outside has started smelling vaguely of hospital air. I might just come back to my senses soon. And I'd be lying if I said I'm not going to miss this place a bit. It feels like I've been saved by a person I left behind and forgot I'd been. I haven't had dreams about places remotely like these for years. The kid who gave me this inspiring world seems to have caught up with me, just long enough to tell me what I needed to hear. Now I'm leaving her behind again, waking up. But she wouldn't want it any other way. She'd want me running, jumping, and climbing, and to get started walking that long road the moment I wake up. The sooner I know my limits, the sooner I can push them. I'm beginning to see a purpose in the clarity of these dreams. These scenarios fooled me initially by being unlike my past experiences of war. Despite the imaginative rendering by my mind, it's now clear to me that this is actually preparing me for redeployment as a cyborg. Since I first entered this world, it has been urging me to leave my humanity behind. The limitations that brought me here have been removed. Why would any integration process be anything but a simulation for what's to come? What use would my experience with my new body schema be if this world was an illusion? I've never understood what held back this technology from surpassing being limited to simple prostheses for civilian use. The leap from repairing a human being to making her better should have been made long ago. I think I've always known what it would look like, but not until these dreams have I been able to experience it. The combat cyborgs I imagined as a child were destined to become a technological possibility at some point. Being developed in secret, I must be one of the early models. I'm happy to be. If this simulation has been any indication, anything will be possible. I wish I could send a signal to the people outside, those who are watching over this process, that I've understood and that I'm ready. I'm not afraid to become more than human. I'm not dismissing these visions as fantasy or nonsense, but accepting them and completing my training regimen. Can you see this? Are you watching my mind? I confess I still have doubts. Sometimes when I return to the room, I feel like the gap between this world and the one I knew is too wide. What I can do here should not be possible. It confounds me, but I'm overcoming those doubts, and I hope you can see it. I believe in the future. This future. Something about waking up this time felt very real for a brief moment, before I recognized where I was. Maybe it means they're starting to bring me back. Or it might just be that I've gotten so used to this world that it meshes perfectly with my understanding of what the future will be like. Either way, I know I'm ready. I'll have many questions, but most of them seem trivial now. Why conceal the deployment of military cyborgs from the public? Why reveal it to me in a dream like a prophetic vision? There's no time for those questions in this world, and there will be even less time once I wake up. Sooner or later, I'll get answers. The only question that really matters is whether they'll continue on with this charade after I wake up, acting like it's still all about rehabilitation and a dignified life as a veteran. I could keep pretending for a while, but eventually it would simply get ridiculous. Sooner or later, I'll just have to confront them about the issue myself. This place is full of ruins. There might have been a structure here once, but it's crumbled to dust. If this means anything, I doubt it's a good sign. I don't know how much was left of my body after the explosion. Maybe ruins are what I have left to work with. There is life here. Vines cling to these remains. Grass grows on them. It's not just repairs that are happening outside right now. I'm in the process of healing, body and mind. I doubt this path is a way for me out of this dream, but there are still things to be learned from visiting the ruins. They are not sacred. This, what is happening to me, is what we humans do. When buildings crumble, we rebuild them. When people are destroyed, we rebuild them too. Maybe, eventually, the new structure will be so overgrown that I won't be able to tell it from the old one, if that is what I want.